fellow moviegoers, and welcome to Movie Central, the place to talk about movies, TV shows based on movies, toys based on movies, games based on movies, and rides based on movies. I'm your host, Mr. CTS, and these are my pets, George the Gorilla, Kahal the Dolphin, and Frank the Sea Turtle. Seeing as how last week I covered the first animated movie based on Hellboy, I'm going to discuss the second film, which was released a year later and is considered to be the most accurate to the source material when it comes to movies.
Okay, before we start talking about historical context, I have two things that I'd like to bring up from the last video that I admittedly screwed up when talking about the movie. First, I brought up that the animation looks similar to that of the Spectacular Spider-Man. And that's because Sean Cheeks Galloway, who did a lot of the art of that show, actually was attached to Sword of Storms, and that completely went over my head when watching this. So, my apologies for not bringing that up. Also, these movies aren't exactly directly tied to the movies. Rather, they're more like Batman the Animated Series, where they are sort of adaptations of some ideas from the movie and expand on them in a straightforward adaptation of the source material. I want to thank the person who commented that last week, because that was a good mistake to point out for me. I always appreciate constructive criticism, so feel free to leave some. Anyways, the second in this animated duology was released in 2007 and was loosely based on the Wake the Devil story from the comics. Unlike the predecessor, however, there was no primetime Emmy for this movie. But, is it still good?
Let's find out today. This is Hellboy, Blood and Iron.
Summoned to an old mansion by a rich man, the Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense's high-ranking members Hellboy, Abe Sapien, and Liz Sherman, voiced by all of the returning actors from the previous movie, are forced to deal with ancient monsters of the underworld under the command of Hecate, voiced by Cree Summer. At the same time, Professor Trevor Broom Bruttenholm, voiced by John Hurt, is forced to relive a past encounter with an ancient evil that haunted all of Transylvania.
If Hellboy's Sword of Storms made me wish for an animated show, this movie only made me want a live-action retelling of this story. This is by far the darkest story Hellboy has taken in regards to the movies so far, and its sheer amount of power it holds over the audience is one of great fear and distress. I really enjoyed this movie and what it was giving me. So let's talk about what else I liked about it as I explain why this is my favorite Hellboy film so far.
As far as characters go, all of them were great. Seriously, you already know that Hellboy was my favorite of the bunch, and that shouldn't come off as a surprise. So I'll just say what I said last time. Ron Perlman delivers a very dry and straight performance. His constant lack of interest always left me with a big smile on my face, and made me feel like I was watching an actual living, breathing character. So once again, I have to thank Ron for bringing so much life into Hellboy as a character. As far as Liz and Abe go, they have tons of more to do here, and I like that. Like the last time, Abe is hilarious, but he still takes his job very seriously. Now his jokes were a lot better in the first movie, but he had a lot more to do here, which is why I enjoyed him a hell of a lot more, and I can say the same thing about Liz as well. As far as the other human characters go, the newbie this time around is Sidney Leach, who is voiced by Rob Paulsen. Unlike the last movie, this is a character I actually like. He's not only memorable for his personality, but also his voice, seeing as how Rob is a very good voice actor and has been for several years, so I gotta give him credit for what he did. Of course, the advent of the characters that make this movie better is the inclusion of Professor Broom. I'm extremely happy that John Hurt came back to voice the character, because I enjoyed him a lot in the first live-action movie, and I wanted to see more of him, and I got my wish. Now, as far as villains go, the main two villains are Hecate and Erzsébet Ondrushko. Ondrushko's role is that of a high priest who is a vampire who has some history with Broom, which made it all the more frightening to see her rise from the dead and face Broom once again. Although, he does give her quite the punishment. As far as Hecate goes, she's the overall big villain that isn't in the movie much, but does have some memorable moments, hence why I think she serves her purpose. So overall, these characters are great and serve the movie they are a part of extremely well. Moving on, the animation, much like the last film, does the same. This time, however, I'd argue it's a lot more improved over this one, as the characters have a lot more detail in them in the close-up shots, and Also because, with a year later. As far as the music goes, once again, it was composed by Christopher Drake, who once again took the blueprint set up by Marco Beltrami and expanded on them, and made it sound really good. I have to give credit where credit is due. Christopher Drake can crank out a great score to one of these movies. Finally, we have the action scenes. My favorite of the bunch has to be the scene where Broom battles Andrushka, because it was full of drama and stakes that one wouldn't wish. The other scene I really liked was the battle between Hellboy and Hekate. You wouldn't expect a battle between two demons to be boring, and you wouldn't expect it to be this cool either, but it was, so there's that. So overall, I know this is a shorter review, but I don't have that much to say about Hellboy Blood and Iron, other than the fact that it is, currently in my eyes, the best Hellboy movie, and that's all down to the tone and execution, hence why it earns a 10 out of 10.
Well, that's all we have for you guys today. Next week, we'll look at the final Hellboy film from Guillermo del Toro. Until then, and with that said, my name is Mr. CCS, these are my pets, this is Movie Central, and that, my friends, is a wrap. Yeah, I changed the outro. Deal with it. See you next week.